We all understand that the Warhammer 40k universe is probably the single most hostile fictional universe ever created. It has rapidly evolving hungry bugs, Egyptian robotic undead people, and to top it off, evil eldritch gods who will literally eat your soul and torture you for eternity. When you consider all those conditions, it is really surprising that some small empire like the Tau are capable of holding on at all. But to be honest, the only reason why they're able to exist is because the Imperium is large enough to soak up most of the attention from the other factions. So considering how hard it can be to actually survive or even thrive in this galaxy, I thought it would be a cool experiment to try to insert factions from other types of media into this universe and theorize how exactly they would fare against its dangers. Today's video is exactly that. Let's put everything we know about Super Earth on the table and see if they're capable of surviving the horrors of the Warhammer 40k universe. Let's begin with a simple question. What exactly is Super Earth? Well, information on its origins is a bit scant, but at its core, Super Earth seems to be a massive corporation that has come into power. They took advantage of national governments during a great war and used their resources to dethrone all of them and establish a world government, which is effectively a corporatocracy. This is, of course, the situation behind the veil. At surface level, Super Earth utilizes an election system called managed democracy, which means that citizens do not directly vote for their favored candidates. Instead, they respond to a series of questions, and the replies are filtered by an artificial intelligence, which then picks out a candidate based on the replies given. This is, of course, a very democratic process that cannot be corrupted in any way. Voter fraud is effectively an impossibility, and questioning this flawless and extremely democratic process is grounds for instant termination. Super Earth has 8 known ministries, each one serving an important role in the maintenance of the government and state. The Ministry of Prosperity seems to be responsible for the basic logistics, supplying the different worlds colonized by Super Earth with state-of-the-art technology and making sure all citizens have easy access to the latest products offered by the state-approved companies. The Ministry of Science is very obviously responsible for anything science-related, from research and development to reverse engineering to everything in between. They were the ones who managed to reverse engineer the Alcubierre drive, which is the method of space travel used by Space Earth. They are also the creators of every single piece of equipment utilized by the Helldivers, from their basic armor and weapons to their stratagems, like the Eagle strikes or even the railgun. They are the main force pushing Super Earth's technology forward. The Ministry of Humanity is responsible for education, healthcare, food distribution, social grading, and genetic management, always ensuring the next generation of humanity is healthier and stronger than the last. The Ministry of Expansion is responsible for terraforming, resource extraction, and colonial expansion and management. It doesn't matter if you are the overseer of a colony or even an entire planet. In the end, they all report back to the Ministry of Expansion. The Ministry of Truth is responsible for the dissemination of information based on truth and democratic values to the public, which means they are basically the propaganda branch of Super Earth. They are also responsible for throttling any attempts to establish a narrative that goes against the very democratic interests of Super Earth. Any kind of dissident activity can and will be punished by either termination or relocation to a freedom camp. The Ministry of Unity is responsible for domestic policy, public security, and law enforcement. Basically, they are the democratic boot stomping on the neck of hippies, commies, and alien or bug sympathizers. The Ministry of Defense provides, manages, and maintains the military forces, needed to deter and wage war as well as protect the security of the Federation. They are also known as SEAF, or Super Earth Armed Forces, and are split into different branches, including the Super Earth Army, the Navy, Colonial Guard, and of course the Helldiver Corps, who receive their orders directly from High Command. This ministry would probably be one of the most important for their survival in this new, hostile galaxy. Last but not least, we have the Ministry of Intelligence, also known as MOI. They are basically the space CIA, if you catch my drift. Espionage, information gathering, plotting, and executing false flag operations, or perhaps even introducing highly addictive drugs to the poorest communities in their territory. Nothing they do is really all that different from the usual three-letter agency stuff, to be honest. You could also compare them to the Inquisition, because functionally, they aren't all that different. The reason for this long-winded introduction is that I feel like each of those ministries has an important part to play if Super Earth is to survive this situation. That being said, let's start discussing the biggest advantage Super Earth has over everybody in the Warhammer 40k universe. Let's talk about space travel. As we all know, interstellar travel in Warhammer 40k is quite the dangerous affair for humanity. The Imperium of Man relies on warp travel, which means traveling through a hyperdimensional space hell constantly. Not only is it dangerous, but it can also be extremely unreliable. Known warp routes can suffer from massive storms, completely cutting off access to entire solar systems. There are also temporal anomalies and demonic incursions that can happen occasionally. Super Earth, however, doesn't need to deal with any of those issues whatsoever. They use the Alcubierre drive for faster-than-light travel, a very elegant piece of technology that distorts space around the ship. This tech contracts the space in front of the craft while expanding the space behind it. Because, under the known laws of physics, it is impossible to make an object move at the speed of light, and even if you manage to do something like that, I'm guessing the sheer pressure would turn the little meatbags inside the spacecraft into grape juice. I'm sure the toaster lovers would be very peaceful and reasonable if they ever heard about this kind of technology. It is miles above every other type of means of transport within Warhammer 40k, since it is known to be able to move across the galaxy within seconds. I think only the webway can be considered to be on the same level, but they have limitations like the webway gates holding them back. That being said, the Alcubierre drive also uses specific routes called FTL lines or supply lines, which are essentially a set route between solar systems. This doesn't seem to be absolutely necessary for travel, but the same way already established warp routes make the journey much safer, I'm guessing those routes also serve a similar purpose. The fuel used to power the engines of their spacecraft is something called Element 710, which is produced from the decomposed bodies of the Terminids. But for the purposes of this video, let's just say they have a safe and effective bug farm, which will satisfy all of their fuel needs indefinitely. Now, this is when things get interesting. You see, Super Earth doesn't really have elite troops like the Imperium has with the Space Marines, or even the Tempestus Scions. The Helldivers are said to be a scalpel, which implies they are some sort of elite, but this is a complete lie. Helldivers are very poorly trained, and their life expectancy is literally 2 minutes. I think even the average guardsman has better training than they do. But if I had to put my money on one of them, between the Helldivers and the Imperial Guard, I would definitely choose the Helldivers. The average guardsman isn't just poorly trained, they are also poorly equipped. With some flimsy flak armor and a laser gun, they are cannon fodder used to drown the enemies of mankind with human bodies. The Helldivers are as expendable as the average guardsman, but they are much better equipped. Through the stratagems, they can receive fire support from an Eagle, which is a hypersonic spacefaring aircraft that can deliver a variety of payloads, from napalm strikes to even a 500 Klu bomb. These crafts can deliver powerful airstrikes to change the tide of a battle. But I believe the best piece of equipment a Helldiver has at their disposal is most definitely the Super Destroyer. The Super Destroyer is a relatively small combat vessel, approximately 170 meters long and 80 meters wide. The Alcubierre drive enables the Super Destroyer to navigate to any planet in the galaxy within seconds by warping time and space around the vessel. This is a mass-produced spacecraft that literally every single Helldiver receives after completing their training, by the way. The Super Destroyer is capable of providing fire support from low orbit, delivering precision strikes with pinpoint accuracy. It is capable of firing 120 and 380 mm artillery, airburst shells, different types of gas, electromagnetic smoke, a high-powered laser that can absolutely melt a bile titan in moments, and an extremely powerful, high-velocity rail cannon. Did I mention that every single one of those Helldivers with a life expectancy of 2 minutes receives one of those? Imagine if every guardsman had their own personal spaceship and fire support. Not even the Tempestus Scions, who are the best of the best among the baseline human troops of the Imperium, receive equipment on this level. And all of this is for the most expendable cannon fodder soldiers. Imagine what kinds of toys the High Command of Super Earth possesses. So let's talk about how exactly they would fit into the Warhammer 40k world now. Super Earth is an extremely bellicose society at its core, but I believe there's definitely some space for diplomacy, provided the environment requires it. Just like the Imperium is reluctantly capable of working together with the Tau or the Eldar, I believe Super Earth would surely behave in the same way. So let's go faction by faction, and I want you to leave a comment if you think I'm wrong, or if you have a different perspective on the matter. I believe they could surely work together with the Imperium, considering all the other threats in the galaxy, especially now that the Imperium is being ruled by Guilliman, who is probably the best diplomat in the galaxy. The High Command of Super Earth is indeed very warlike, but they aren't idiots. If they can use a faction against another, they absolutely will. A war with the Imperium would be far too costly and simply stupid, because the other Xenos factions are a massive threat to the survival of humanity in general. The Mechanicus, however, would be quite problematic to deal with. The FTL tech that Super Earth possesses would make even the Fabricator General of Mars cream his jorts. But both factions have some kind of tech the other faction would be interested in, so perhaps with some luck, they could develop a trade deal of sorts. That being said, if the Mechanicus ever hears that Super Earth utilizes AI technology, things could get extremely dicey. Tech heresy is a great excuse for the Mechanicus to enter a protracted war with Super Earth. The Votan would probably be easier to deal with. They are more than willing to trade, and I believe they look human enough for Super Earth to at least give them the benefit of the doubt. The Tau are definitely getting the democratic treatment, though. They have very good tech and are basically blue commies. I can see Super Earth getting into war with them very easily. The Tau have better tech, in my opinion, but Super Earth is actually capable of reverse engineering their stuff. So perhaps this war could serve Super Earth's interests and help them develop their tech. The Tau are also suffering a protracted war with a hive fleet, which means they are slightly busy at the moment. The Tyranids would be a problem. The bugs Super Earth is used to exterminating cannot compare to the hive mind at all. They could perhaps deal with a hive fleet, depending on how many worlds and resources they have under them, but if the Tyranids really dedicate their forces into exterminating them, which they honestly almost never do, Super Earth would be completely void. The Eldar are too few to be a problem, but they are definitely getting some democracy if they try to interact with Super Earth. The Drukhari would do their thing. Super Earth would be as capable of defending against their shenanigans as the Imperium is, which isn't necessarily bad, but it isn't good either. Chaos would be pretty much shot on sight too. Because of how powerful Super Earth's propaganda is and how easily they are willing to just Kennedy dissidents, I believe they could handle humans becoming psychers and chaos cultists very well. Their society is already designed to crush wrong think, so every type of Suez behavior would be swiftly crushed. And this is before actually understanding the threat chaos and the Empyrean poses. After that, they can surely adapt their propaganda machine to eliminate such threats, using the Ministry of Unity to get rid of any dangerous elements in their society. It seems they would be willing to use psychers and their abilities for the good of the Federation, but at the same time, they wouldn't be allowed to live regular lives, working more as tools of war than anything else. The Necrons could crush Super Earth at any time if they decided to, but they could probably do that to any other faction that isn't the Tyranids anyway, so it's a moot point. Besides, the Necrons are actually more interested in preserving life in the galaxy than anything else, and Necron technology can be reverse-engineered like any other, though I believe it's a significantly more difficult process. And finally, the Orcs. Well, there really isn't much to discuss about them at all. They would fight Super Earth like they fight everyone else, and I personally don't think the Orcs are beyond what Super Earth is capable of handling anyway. In conclusion, I think Super Earth has a good chance of survival. There's even the possibility of a new warp god being born, a god of liberty and democracy that would surely protect the Federation against the dangers of the Sea of Souls. All in all, they have the technology and the correct mindset to survive Warhammer 40k. Their capacity to reverse engineer alien technology is remarkable. Super Earth stole their FTL drive tech from a different and much more advanced alien species. They are also surprisingly capable at warfare, even with their poorly trained troops, being able to win a war on 3 fronts, with one of the fronts being against an alien race with better tech than them. And besides that, if all else fails, they can hop on their largest spaceships and go settle somewhere else, or even live a nomadic life like the Craftworld Elder do. But what do you guys think? Can they actually survive or not? What role would Super Earth play in the galactic conflicts? Let me know your thoughts. This is a video filled with speculations, so I believe you guys can add a lot to it. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.